In all of space and time, across the eons and eons that have passed, and from whatever mystery it is that we have emerged, here we are, here and now, in this moment, together. Out of everything that could have been, out of all the possible configurations of reality, you are there and I am here, and this brief intersection of our existence is taking place right now. There's something about that which I find difficult to grasp, but also deeply moving. There is an African philosophy known as Ubuntu, which speaks to the idea that I am because we are, suggesting that who we are is not something isolated or self-contained, but something that is formed, shaped, and brought into being through our relationships with others. That my identity, in some fundamental sense, doesn't belong solely to me, but is something co-created, something that arises in the space between us. Jean-Paul Sartre once suggested that hell is other people, pointing to the way in which being seen by others can feel like being trapped within their perception of us, as though we are confined to an identity that is no longer our own. While there is something that Sartre is touching on that is true, it also seems to me that there's another side which is equally important that is missing, which is that without others, there is no identity at all. Without others, there is no language, no shared meaning, no reflection through which we can come to know ourselves. And in that sense, the self doesn't exist in isolation, but emerges through relationship. And when I bring that out of the abstract and into something more immediate and personal, what I find is a simple sense that it is a kind of privilege to share this brief span of existence with you. 100 years ago, neither of us were here, and in 100 years, it is likely that neither of us will be here either. And yet, somehow, within this incredibly narrow window, we have both arrived. We find ourselves alive, aware, conscious, and capable of experiencing this moment, however fleeting it may be. It does feel in some sense like a flash of light between two vast unknowns. And yet within that flash, there is the possibility of something meaningful. And for reasons that I can't fully explain or adequately describe, this leaves me feeling a great sense of joy, for lack of a better word. The poet Rumi once wrote that beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field, and I will meet you there. And I find myself returning to that image because it gestures toward a space that exists beyond judgment, beyond the ways in which we measure, compare, or define one another. A space where there's no need to perform, no need to prove, no need to be anything other than what we are. And in that space, when we let go of what we think is true and we transcend that, within that emptiness there seems to be something like love. A love that feels closer to something like a deep recognition or acknowledgement of the other. A sense that despite the confusion of existence, despite the anxiety, the fear, the weight of being a conscious being in a world that doesn't make sense, there is still the possibility of connection. There is still the possibility of caring for one another and of not being entirely alone in this. Because this experience of being human is, in many ways, a confusing and overwhelming one. At some point in our early life, we find ourselves here, thrust into existence, conscious and aware, looking out at the world through our senses, attempting to understand something that appears ultimately to be beyond our full comprehension. And yet, within that uncertainty, there exists the opportunity to connect, to create, to care, and to share something of this experience with others. It often, to me, feels as though each of us is moving through this life in our own way, carrying our own fears, our own histories, our own struggles, as though we're each sailing individual boats across a vast and uncertain ocean. And while there is a sense in which that journey is deeply personal, there is also a sense in which we are absolutely not alone in it, because we are all out here, out there together, navigating the same ocean, even if from different positions within it. And perhaps it's in moments like this, in moments where we are within the moment and truly inhabiting the here and now, and inhabiting it in such a way that it is no longer here or now, it just is. It is the easiest to remember that and to live that. So what am I even wanting to say here? I don't really know. But from the deepest sense, I wanted to say thank you for being who you are and for bringing your particular way of being into this world, for existing as your unique expression of something that could never be replicated in quite the same way again, ever. Thank you for participating in this shared reality, for being part of the conditions that allow something like this moment to exist at all. And in some sense, the fact that you are here means that I am able to be here in the way that I am, and that there is something taking place between us that would not exist otherwise, something unique and something special. And there is something deeply meaningful in that, even if I very much struggle to articulate it and find the words. And it is at a point like this where I am content to say that language has reached its limit, and that what I am trying to point towards is something that words can only approximate but never fully capture. So all I could really say and leave you with is something that both does and doesn't capture what I want to say, which is just thank you for existing and for being who you are. Thank you, and I wish you well.